Alright everyone, we start off today with another note that things have shifted quite a bit in the last few weeks on COVID and certainly on politics. There's a link in the description of this video, cross-platform, archived of course. This is to the RCP main page as it appeared, roughly when I went to bed yesterday, so the 22nd. They haven't updated it yet, but they will at some point, so for people that are watching this like 5-6 hours from now, it's archived. You can re-archive it, by the way, if you want a live snapshot. Look at some of the titles here, and more importantly, the people that are actually reporting on them. This is a pretty dire moment, I think, for the Democrats. It's not just Biden. His approval is collapsing again. Where his soft floor is and whether he's penetrated it or not, I think he probably has, but we're not 100% sure. We can't say. But if we look at the generic congressional ballot, this is for the U.S., of course. I'm not talking about the Republican Party of Croatia or something. They're behind there. They're behind in numerous races for which there's any polling, although it's still pretty early for midterm races. I do not favor the Democrats to maintain the House or Senate at this point. I think they have a little bit of a chance in the Senate just because they start off with not all of the seats being up. Of course, only a third of them are up each cycle. In the House, though, it's a different story. They get a 5-seat advantage, and they've got 28 Dems already retiring. I think they lose the House easily. I don't think there's anything they can do to stop that at this point. But look at some of these titles here. First and foremost, though, keep in mind down below, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use because of my exclusive material that doesn't go on YouTube. So get your full Daily Clank, follow me on BitChute or Rumble or Odyssey or Minds or Dailymotion, and get all of the videos. Dailymotion, by the way, I don't put the Occult Lit videos there. They don't like Amazon links. So I learned after getting banned several times. They restored it, though. They were troopers about it. Look at some of the titles here, and then, again, think of who's reporting it, because that matters. Biden's admin is in shambles. Not entirely his fault, says The Guardian. Of course, foreign news, a bit more balanced there, but Biden, even to the UK's media, generally is not raked over the coals. So his admin's in shambles, which means it's falling apart. They throw him a bone and say it's not entirely his fault. Technically speaking, I hate to tell you this if you're like total MAGA, but they are technically right. He didn't implement any lockdowns because he lacks the power to do so. The problem is he gets blamed for them because he claimed that he was going to shut down the virus. He made a promise he couldn't keep. Omicron emerged. He threw up a Hail Mary because he already was losing on economic issues, and now he's paying the consequences. Again, everything that can go wrong in his presidency has. All that remains now is for him to have a dementia moment on live stage, poop himself, and start to eat it or something. COVID parenting has passed the point of absurdity by Melinda Moyer of The Atlantic. Now, again, this is The Atlantic. The Atlantic is lock, stock, and barrel pro-Democrat. They're very pro-Biden. They have no problem with the leftoid, cringe fringe like AOC and Elon Omar. They used to be the Gang of Four. Now it's just the Geek Squad because they've got more members. They're still fools, but there are more fools in the House, as though there weren't enough already before the arrival of these goofballs. I agree with this. Yeah, the idea of, hey, my kid's going to live in a bubble for the rest of their life and wear 5 masks, that it passed the point of absurdity long ago. I love how they're just barely catching up, but it's better late than never. Let's give them credit. They're chastising what is effectively an offshoot Democratic Party policy. We see DeSantis and Abbott and all of these others and Noem standing against this kind of thing, saying, no, schools either shouldn't be forcing the mask issue and forcing vax cards and stuff, or we're going to outright ban them, again, as they're doing in Florida. Virginia's attacking the concept. It goes hand in hand with critical race theory, which is another denigration of the education system. We're effectively funding propaganda in schools while doing social engineering. We're turning our kids into mindless lemmings, which is like, now there's plenty of them in the world anyway. At some point, can you leave a few people that are independent-minded? You're going to run out of people to run the show. Everyone will be a goddamn robot. I don't think the Illuminati quite thought it through. Pro tip, that's just a joke. Yeah, otherwise people will take that clip out of context and they will declare that I've joined QAnon or something. So there's another one. Then we've got, Vox is propping him up, which they're never going to stop doing that. Democrats' fight for democracy isn't over. Where is it here? There's also one by Slate. Will Democrats ever stop embarrassing themselves? This is by Jim Newell for Slate. I don't want to live in your mask paranoid world anymore, says Bill Maher of Real Time. I think there's a couple others on here. Keep in mind, this is a snapshot in time. This is just one particular day. I'm reading through it right now. Where was it? Americans feel burnout politically, personally and politically. That's from 538. That's Nate Silver's people. They lean towards the Dems. You'd think they'd want to paint a rosy picture, but apparently not. There was one other on here. Yes, Biden's disappointing first year. Now that's an editorial, so a little bit different. That's from Bloomberg. The Bloomberg, as in just about the most Democratic Party adjacent legacy media firm you can get. So this is like what, 6 different chastisements of either the Democrats and or Biden or their policies in one single day, despite the fact that until a couple of weeks ago, it'd be very rare, very hard pressed to find any sort of criticism of Biden's policies, of the Democratic Party, or of their various agendas, even divorced from the partisan context, aggregated here, unless they came from something like the Examiner or the New York Post, or Fox News or something. So the controlled op and the missing link media right, they'd report on it. The entire full legacy media, again minus Fox, which is controlled opposition. I stand by my belief that that's the case. Not winning myself a pundit slot, I suppose, in my 40s. And all of the others, and most of the missing link media, they wouldn't chastise Biden at all. Biden does crazy shit. He fails over and over. They had dick to say about it. They didn't even talk about all the problems that were going on. That was their biggest defense of Biden, is sort of like a microcosm of the Biden presidency. It's boring and he's an absentee. He spent fully a quarter of all of the days of his first year in asterisk office in Delaware. Now, I seem to recall Biden and many of his fans chastising Trump for taking too many vacation days. It wasn't a quarter of the days of his presidency. Yeah, he went to the Mar-a-Lago a lot. You know what he was doing there? He wasn't just sitting there and petting his dog. Largely, he was doing golf diplomacy, and of course, this was considered very, very problematic by liberals until Joe Biden, who's effectively on hospice care, ended up in the White House. When you see this sort of thing happen, and in short order, that sort of sea change is a sign of things to come. They're throwing Biden under the bus. I'm convinced at this point that nobody wants Biden to run in 24. I think that there's an inkling in the more intelligent strategic minds it would be good to get him out before the midterms. It'd be good to manufacture a reason. Have Joe effectively come out and say, look, I can't do it anymore. This has nothing to do with the policies failing. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm clearly demented. It has nothing to do... I'm just tired. I've gotten in over my head. I've been president. We've done a lot of work. Kamala will take over now, and she'll do even more because she's black and female. I did some good stuff, but now, I need to go away. I'm just not feeling it anymore. We're not able to get... Or they'll blame obstruction. Well, the Republicans keep breaking all the toys. Fuck it. And just leave. Wander off the reservation. Keep it entirely partisan so that the core audience stays supporting the next asterisk administration. Kamala, Buttigieg, whoever the fuck ends up in that position. And that's what you do. Having him as the standard bearer of the party in the midterms effectively means you don't have a standard bearer. He's out to lunch. He doesn't campaign for people. Nobody wants him to. His approval rating is now virtually sub 40. Again, let's keep this in context. Donald Trump had slightly higher approval at this point in his presidency than Biden has. Similar disapproval. He spent his entire first year being hammered relentlessly by the entire media, including most of the people at Fox, again, controlled opposition as they are. Biden, until the last few weeks, has faced almost no criticism for even his worst and most atrocious actions, giving the Taliban tens of billions of dollars in weaponry through a frenetic flight out of Afghanistan. If it had been done by any other president, would have resulted in immediate removal from office. If Trump, for example, had done that. if he had said, he gets reelected and he says, you know what, I'm not actually holding to the May timeline. Fuck it, I'm unilaterally pushing it back 6 weeks. And then despite that extension of time, leaves a bunch of shit behind, including hundreds of hostages, some of which are still in Kabul. The Republicans would have immediately broken rank with Trump and impeached him. He would have been removed from office. He would have been forced to resign. He would have been at sub-10 approval too, because all the right-wing networks would have called him evil. Oh my God, he ceded Afghanistan. Biden, meanwhile, doesn't really face any consequences for it. People have largely forgotten it. By the way, as predicted, I predicted that the slump in his polling from Afghanistan effectively only lasted a couple of weeks. The trajectory was already on the negative, and it was just a deviation in the negative zone beyond the negative direction in which it was already heading. It wasn't that. It's inflation primarily that's killing his presidency, inflation and shortages. And the border crisis for the people that are near the border and communities disproportionately impacted by drug crime, which is also a big thing. The crime rate's still skyrocketing. This should be non-stop coverage of Biden's failures. There shouldn't be any story on here related to politics in general that doesn't proclaim Biden is a pussy-ass bitch. That's the only headline we should have. He has failed completely. And they're beginning to let people know. It's nice to know that some of the people at Slate will break the cognitive dissonance and understand, oh yeah, it's okay to criticize this regime, which so far has zero accomplishments after an entire year. No obstruction during that period, other than Manchin and Sinema telling you, hey, we don't want to hyperinflate the currency so much that we get destroyed in the next election, and we're not comfortable with ceding our states' rights to the federal government with regards to voter ID laws. Which, by the way, is very popular to do. Sinema and Manchin are on the right side of history on this. I hope the Democratic Party understands this. Be talking about that separately, their censoring of Sinema. No, this is, the news could not get more dire for Biden. And it definitely couldn't get more dire for the Democrats. They're beginning to get hammered to take attrition too. Biden was so much a punching bag for the right-wing media, at least. He took all the fire. Now the Democrats at large are all lumped into the same thing, and their actions and decisions are not helping. They are stubbornly resistant to observing why they keep losing. They seem mentally incapable of doing so. It's something that oftentimes has plagued the Republicans. The Republicans right now are going to run a midterm on educational transparency and reform, fighting crime. They're not starting new wars. They're not talking about giving more tax breaks to corporations. That and respecting workers' rights. They've effectively stolen several main Democratic talking points, and the Dems have been left holding a pile of goddamn shit and saying to people, well, we want communism in schools, and you should have to fund it, and you shouldn't complain about it. Just sit down and shut up. Parents don't have rights. Hey, let's warmonger after Russia. Some more. Let's go fucking crazy. The Democrats are beginning to sound kind of like, more stupid versions of 90s Republicans. The Republicans, meanwhile, have taken a leaf out of Trump's book and sort of reverted to like corporate Dems in the 70s and 80s. Back when they kind of sort of made sense. That's about all. Peace out.